Today's video will be about whether you should relocate your manifold air temperature sensor. Hello, I'm Eugene Tordo's ZT Garage, and today's video is about manifold intake sensor on an L98 and whether you should relocate it. But before I get into this, I forgot in my last video to mention Nick Bertay. He has a YouTube channel. He's into drifting. Right now he's doing an LS swap on a 350Z, I believe it is, which he does drifting in and stuff like that. So go check out his channel. I will leave a link to it somewhere up here. And so please check that out for me and do me a favor and check out his channel. Subscribe, like, and share to that channel. Okay, now let's get back to the manifold air temperature sensor. Okay, on the L98s and C4 Corvettes, they have a manifold air temperature sensor. Now, I'm not sure how they varied through the years, but this will definitely 100% apply to 90 and 91, because that was slightly different from the earlier ones from 85 to 89. Those L98s had a MAF sensor, and then in 90, 91 they did away with the MAF sensor and went to a MAP sensor. That's a whole other subject. But there might be different tuning variables in there. We will go inside on the computer and I will do a screen record of Tuner Pro and show you some things you need to change if you change this, and why I recommend you don't change it. So let me move the camera around and I'll try and explain best I can. I did a video on air temperatures at the air cleaner. My last video, I'll leave a link to that too at the end of this video. So let's move the camera around and I'll show you what's going on, hopefully a better explanation of what's going on. Okay, here we have your typical L98. This is a 90. 91 will be very similar. It has a MAP sensor, but we're not going to go on that in this video. And then of course the earlier L98s, 85 to 89, they had a MAF sensor, which measures the airflow going into the throttle body. These do not have that. I'm not sure exactly how it affects it in the tune. But before we get into that, this is your manifold air temperature sensor on a Corvette. Now, if this was on a Camaro, they use an open element sensor. I don't know why GM did that. A lot of people say it has to do with heat soak. They say like these heat soak, and that's one reason people say you should move your air temperature sensor, which is located underneath this plenium on the bottom. Okay, and as you can see, I have it located here to the air cleaner. Now, the only reason I did that was I will leave a link to the playlist. I swapped from a tune port to a Chinese version of the Edelbrock ProFlow XT, and that does not have provisions for a manifold air temperature sensor underneath it or anywhere on it to mount it. I could have fabricated a bung or something like that and mounted it that way, but I chose to relocate it there. And when I went back to the tune port, I decided to leave it. Now, they do sell kits to relocate it, and they advertise extra performance and stuff like that. But what really happens is when you move it up there, the computer, the way it's programmed, it's going to read it as being a lot colder air, and it's going to add more fuel. And that's basically what you're doing. Is it's just helping them, it's just tricking the computer into running rich. At least that's what they claim. But what happens is, as long as you're running an O2 sensor, the O2 sensor, once you're going closed loop, is going to correct for it, and you're still going to be running at 14.7 anyway. Now, when you go full open throttle, that's where you'll have extra fuel added. In my opinion, the stock tune is actually, whenever you go go into acceleration mode or power enrichment mode or wide open throttle, you usually end up it actually adds too much fuel. It's actually too rich in my opinion. And they do that for safety reasons for back then on the older OBD1 systems to prevent detonation. That's what the consensus is, or what a lot of people out there on the internet say anyway. And that's I think the same thing. For instance, in my tune, I actually pulled fueling into power enrichment and acceleration enrichment because it was just, well, this isn't stock anyway, but it doesn't matter. Even in the stock tune, I did that, and it helped improve performance and fuel mileage, actually. So you just got to be careful with that. But that's one of the things when you relocate it from there to there. Okay, when it's located here, it's a manifold air temperature sensor. When you move it to here, it's a intake air temperature sensor, and it requires different programming. For instance, there's two tables that are associated with the manifold air temperature sensor in the program inside your ECM, and one of them, when you relocate this up there, you have to disable it, or you're supposed to disable it. This is another thing when it comes to tuning, and there's different opinions on it. And then you also have to readjust your other table to allow for the cooler airs, otherwise you'll be running real rich. I disabled that and enable and adjusted that table, but in cold weather, like I took it out the other day when I did that air temperature intake air cleaner air temperature video, and I'm on the rich side, so I need to make more adjustments to that table. Or next time I have this cleaning off, I'm just going to go right back to the factory location and factory table, because I think it runs more efficient that way. That's just my opinion. Of course, I'll have to make other adjustments to the VE table and stuff like that. But I'm going to go into that. This is why, one of the reasons I recommend you don't relocate it, because the truth is the factory engineers designed the system to work that way. And a lot of people are saying this gets heat soaked, which is true. It probably does. But they have that programmed in here. They put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles on these motors when they do the programming, not just to get it to run right, but to meet EPA certification and all that stuff. And, unless you're getting into a lot of programming, or you're changing from a different ECM, which is a different system, relocating it is really just a waste of time. Like I said, the only reason I did it was because I changed to a different intake. Now I'm back to the tune port. I'm just going to go right back over there and then just plug that hole down there. But let's go inside on the computer, and I'll show you some of the things, what I do and what I've researched and changed, and just why the best thing you could do is just leave this right where it's at and not be bothered with any of that stuff, because there's very little gain to moving it up there, in my opinion. Leave your comments down below on that if you want. Let's go inside. All right, we're in the house. I'm going to go on the computer. I'm going to do a screen record and voiceover, and we'll go over the tables that you should adjust. And this applies to 9091. I'm not sure about the earlier years. I could probably look it up. But like I said, if you just leave it where it's at, you don't have to worry about it. If you leave it where it originally is on the Palladium, you don't have to worry about it. If you're not and especially if you're not in the tuning, if you don't do tuning yourself like I do, it's going to be, just one less thing to worry about. If you do relocate it, and you're having someone tune it, discuss relocating it with your tuner first and get his advice. And if you're going to be doing tuning on a dyno especially, also get his advice to relocate it and to go into these settings and make the changes. So like I said, let's get on the computer, and I'll show you what you have to do. This will all be in Tuner Pro. Okay, here we are on the computer. And we have two tables, and where it's located and how it's done is based on the XDF file. A lot of people like to use what they call Super HF, I think it's called. I've tried that and I didn't like it. It's just personal taste. That's all I'm going to say. Nothing more. But if we, in my XDF file, I'm going to close these out. Close that out, close that out, and close that out. When you relocate your manifold air temperature sensor to the air cleaner or upstream of the throttle body, becomes an intake air temperature sensor. And you have enable inverse MAT lookup, manifold air temperature lookup table. That you want to disable it. And if you look here on it where it's set, okay, here I have a compare bin, and ANHU, that is the factory bin file. You see here they have it checked, they have it enabled. Here I have it disabled. And I have it disabled because we're not going to use that table, and I'll go into that here in a second. Now we're going to go to our tables, and we are going to look for manifold condensation counts. And then we're going to look for manifold air temperature inverse table lookup. This is the table that is disabled, so we're not using this. This table, the best way I can describe it is it is used, it coordinates the temperature between your water temperature gauge and your manifold air temperature gauge. That's the best way I can describe it, for simplicity's sake. This right now, because I have my intake sensor located, or my manifold air temperature sensor, I keep getting that confused, located, relocated, so it's now an intake air temperature sensor. It is disabled because you don't need to coordinate it. It's working separately from the water temperature. It doesn't need to be coordinated with that. So the only table where you're using is the manifold condensation counts. And if you look, it has manifold air temperature degrees in Celsius and then the number of counts. And you can adjust that table accordingly. Now, I'll bring up a little graph. This is where it gets a little confusing. I just left it stock, but it gets a little confusing. I need to play with it if I'm going to leave it in that location, which I'm not. And this is the reason I haven't played with it. Some say if you increase this, it leans it out. And if you decrease it, it richens it. So the only way, of course, to test that, what I read, is to make changes. Go for a drive, data log it, compare it to your data log. Problem with this is you're basing it on your intake air temperatures, which like right now is, like say it's 10 degrees, well let's say it's 30 degrees Fahrenheit outside, which would be, okay, I don't know what, between 8 and -4 degrees. So you're going to have to make your adjustments there when you're driving around and so forth. That's the reason I don't like it. You got to drive around. Next day you go out, it might be warm. You might not reach those temperatures. So how do you compare it? That's what makes it adjusting it difficult. You depending on the weather, you got to do your adjustments. Like say I start driving right now and it's 10 in the morning and it's 32 degrees out or something like that. By the time I data log, make the changes, it might be 10 degrees warmer, depending on the time of the year. That's the problem with this doing this. You got to go for a drive, make your stop, make your adjustments, burn a new chip because this is OBD1 unless you have an emulator, and then start over again. Hope the temperature stays steady all day long while you're doing this. Good luck with that. And over again and over again. That ain't really that difficult. I imagine You could just do it on a dyno. I say it's an open air dyno, and you get good cold air temperatures, say somewhere in say 32 degrees Celsius or something, or 20 degrees Celsius, and adjust that, and then just adjust all your other ones accordingly. See, you can do it like that, and just compensate it count like that. And one thing I've noticed, it won't let me go any lower than what I'm doing right now. I don't know if there it goes. We'll have to try that. I never adjusted it, so let's see. I should be able to get lower. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now, I'm not worried about getting this back to stock because let's say, okay, let's just change it like that, and I'll save it. And I'll show you why I'm not worried about it. Because I have this originally at the factory settings. Close that out, save it, open it back up, and I go to copy from compare. So I go to compare, which is the factories, highlight it, go back, execute, and it's right back to the factory setting. No problems. And then just save. I'm not going to go more into tuning because I do not consider myself a professional tuner. All my experience is with my 90 Corvette when it comes to tuning. So if you want to do more, when it comes to tuning, it's a steep learning curve. If you're willing to take the time to learn it, do it. I have a bunch of videos, and there's a bunch of other good information out there. And when it comes to tuning, one thing I found is one person's way of tuning is different from another person's way of tuning. And they'll argue, and sometimes you'll see on the forums, they'll say, oh, no, you got to do this. And another person says, no, you got to do that. I find I just learn the basics, stick to it, and keep it simple. And I'm happy with my tune. All right, let's get off the computer screen and end this video. All right, I hope I explained that in a way everyone can understand. And if you want to break it down in the simplest thing, just leave that manifold air temperature sensor right where it's located. And leave it the way the factory designed it, and you'll be happier. If you really want to get into complicated tuning and play around, and you like playing with doing your own tune in the ECM, go ahead, change it around and play with those settings. Me, I have better things to do. Like I said, when I have a chance, if I ever have that manifold off again, which I may soon, I am going to move it back to the manifold and just change it back to the factory settings. And of course, I'll readjust my VE table and stuff when I do that. But for now, like I was saying at the beginning of the video, check out Nick Berte's YouTube channel and all that good stuff. And everybody have a great day. And God bless.